But Deborah and Lou, it's an absolute pleasure to have you as our guest at AV. And, well, the floor is yours until 10 o'clock.
Well, I want to start out by saying that we can't hide behind closed doors. Our doors burned down. A lot of our doors burned down. And when we left and went to Cuba, the fires in paradise started. And we've had floods. Floods are all over the world. It's not unique to California. I was recently in Ireland and they had a weather bomb, they called it. And there were several 100,000 homes that were without power. And I want to tell you that we witnessed these fires. Family members lost their homes. My grandchildren lost friends in homes that had to move away. And many people died and perished in their homes at 1 and 2 in the morning. There was no warning. They're putting us into drought. This is a worldwide control of weather on all levels, every level. They're selling us the illusion of running out of water. This is a school bus. This is up in paradise. Paradise lost. These are floods. They're doing this all over the world. California is not just a test bed. It's not a pilot program. It just happens to be a debatable 5th or 7th economy in the world, and they're taking it down, like they're going to take you down and your economy down. The fires raged. The smoke in the air was nauseous, and they've been running tests on women that have been pregnant to see the damage and the effects of all of the poisons and toxins in the air. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. The increased electromagnetic frequencies in the air have electrified the environment. And with the directed energy weapons and the ground-based arsonists and the mind control that goes into our communities. I don't know if you knew that these weaponized snow bombs in Mexico, they targeted a couple 100 acres, I believe, of a Volkswagen plant of new cars and dented them all up. This is the town of Paradise, November 8th of 2018. Santa Rosa burned on October 8th of 2017, and we burned all the time in between. This is an example of flooding in Australia. Too much water now all of a sudden after years of punishment, drought, because they punish countries who do not obey. This is what we face. We look at what is happening all over the world to the farmlands. Cattle aren't sustainable. Either are we. And you look at the fact that they create all of these types of events. And I gave this talk before the County Board of Supervisors in Sonoma County. I believe it was January of 2018, just a month or so after our neighborhoods burned down. I had gone before them years before and told them about this email exchange. And this email exchange is very, very important. This was between Rothschild, who is in control of our utilities worldwide. Worldwide. Rothschild LLC is in control of our utilities. When I first saw this email exchange, it was as a result of our fighting against the smart meters in Northern California, and we got the opt-out. But I will tell you, that was only an appeasement. It was to quiet down the activism that was occurring, because they didn't want everyone else that was soon to be deployed by the smart meters to know that it was coming. They wanted to quiet us down. Media would not come to our staged events, and we couldn't get any cameras on the resistance against the deployment of these weapons systems. So I decided on 1/11/11 that I would get arrested, because I figured that maybe it would end up on the internet. Maybe people would start seeing that grandma cares, because there's lots of grandmas out here and lots of grandmas care, and lots of moms. So what ended up occurring is I got on a list with Pacific Gas and Electric, aka Rothschild, and when I received a call from the San Francisco Chronicle saying, "Deborah, how does it feel to be spied on by Pacific Gas and Electric?" And I said, why should I be surprised? The smart grid is a spy grid. It's a kill grid. Why would I be surprised that they would be spying on me? Doesn't matter. So a lawsuit ensued. Another group was in charge of that, and as a result, there was a download of documents, 65,000 all total. This was one of them. And Pacific Gas and Electric did not mean to hand over this document. This is dated 2011. The bottom email is from the California Public Utility Commission. It's run by Rothschild. It's not a regulatory agency to keep the utility commission rates in control. And it's dated August the 22nd of 2011, and the subject is space weather. I'm going to read it to you. It says, "I assume you're assembling a high-level task force of washed up, never were, yet somehow movie star handsome former astronauts to handle PG&E's response to the upcoming damaging space weather." Damaging space weather. "Also, please dribble out, one at a time over the next few months, all internal memos, lawsuits, PowerPoint presentations, and officer cover-up directives in which Pacific Gas and Electric is repeatedly warned about damaging space weather and chooses to do nothing about it, then has its lawyers blame the customers, all of us. It's global warming. We're being blamed. Too many people using too much stuff. And AKA Earthlings for any adverse consequences resulting. Thank you." And then a few minutes later, from PG&E, they said, "Just a reminder, we are the first to propose a solar generator in space that will beam RF waves down from a receptor site and convert it to DC current. We have changed our receptor site from the Mojave Desert to Sebastopol in California." So let's talk about what we didn't understand they were doing back then. But before I go there, I want to encourage all of you to read the inserts in your utility bills, like we do. This is an insert, and it talks about many things, but it says reality of year-round fire season is a new normal facing California state leaders. And it goes on to say, when the National Weather Service declares a red flag warning, this is from Southern California Edison. We receive bills from Pacific Gas and Electric and from Southern California Edison, both Rothschild. Both Rothschild. All of them are Rothschild. And so it says that they'll be cutting off our power. So what does that mean when they cut off our power and you're in the rural area? You have no water. You can't douse your property for fire prevention. And they're going to let it burn because they've given us a burn 'em up list for this year. You're going to see California ignited. They've given us a list. So I encourage all of you, on top of all of this, Pacific Gas and Electric is now requesting customer bills to be increased, and that was approved hand down by the extension of Pacific Gas and Electric and California Public Utility Commission working together. The damages and the lawsuits and the loss is all going to be paid by the customers. So what happened also in 2011? Pacific Gas and Electric, your country, my country, Russia, and more, signed on to a new delivery system of power to Earth. This is unimaginable. This is off the Pacific Gas and Electric website. So they're finding a new source of power. And this company called the Solarin Corporation, based in Southern California, Manhattan Beach, has patents for transmitting microwave-directed energy from space to pinpoint locations on Earth, aka California fires, aka all the other states that have climate action plans that talk about fires and floods and outages. This is all planned, and it discusses it right here in the UK, and I will get to that. So Solarin Corporation has patents, and they're going to, again, be using microwave radio frequency beamed and focused on an array of collector antennas where it will be transformed into electrical power supplied by Rothschild. And also, the solar-powered satellite will generate a powerful microwave radio frequency beam to control the weather by heating deployments of aluminum oxide and other conductive particles sprayed from aircraft. The patent describes methods of steering and changing the intensity of hurricanes all over the world. All over the world. It's important to understand that they tell us that they're sustainable. That this is zero-emission electricity from space. That's why right now there is increased global dimming occurring right now. They're dimming the sun. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But who's involved? This is what this looks like. But who's involved? They're telling us it's clean energy, no emissions. China's involved. But your country's involved. Let me read those to you. The United States, China, India, Japan all have solar-based power projects in development, and so does the UK. In fact, Russian patents are what are driving some of this as well. There are no borders. We're Earth Inc. The one world order, or the new world government that we've always been told about, NOW, new world order, is now. It's right now. We're borderless. I'm going to talk about that as we move along. We were all warned. I know many of you remember, as I do, what John F. Kennedy warned us about. He said there will be infiltration instead of invasion, subversion instead of elections, intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. This is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Now, a number of years ago, when I was working on a smart meter presentation, I found this mission statement off of the Pennsylvania Smart Infrastructure Incubator website. And it talked about a hidden secret that they had. So I'm going to tell you about this hidden secret so that it's not hidden from you. But they warned us back then that transportation, transit systems, buildings, pipes, power grid, concrete, and steel, they're going to replace everything with cyber infrastructure, computers, networks, and sensors in ways that are just emerging now. This was probably back in 2011. The former FBI director also warned us that the individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous, he cannot believe it exists. The American mind and all other minds worldwide simply have not come to the realization of the evil which has been introduced into our midst, and it rejects even the assumption that human creatures could espouse a philosophy which must ultimately destroy all that is good and decent. We've been dumbed down, intentionally dumbed down. A very dangerous dumbing down now exists. We see it on the streets. The Extinction Rebellion, dumbing down. But again, that was always the aim, the planned enslavement through lack of knowledge. This is an example of the children, the kids all over the world, a couple months ago, protesting worldwide to be concerned about climate change. And we're not moving on it fast enough. So I want to go back a little bit into what happened in the United States and how it's affected you and how our world and how we were all so deceived. James Traficant, who we met before he was suspiciously killed in a tractor event in his Ohio farmhouse, wrote the America's First Minuteman. And he put on record in the congressional record many times, and he said this: members of Congress are official trustees residing over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in the world's history, the U.S. government. Our gold was confiscated, and the United States federal government exists today in name only. None of our local jurisdictions, city councils, county board of supervisors have any jurisdiction. Cities, states, and nations, again, have no jurisdiction. We're USA Inc. We're traded on the New York Stock Exchange. We are a corporation. And you're Earth Inc. We're all in it together. We're all in this together. We're the enemy. When you look at Senate Report 93549 and you look at the annual state of national emergency, we are now in a continuous and perpetual state of terror, an endless state of emergency. Look that up. We're the enemy. Hence, the poisoning of our air, water, the targeting of frequencies, fires, storms, floods. This is very important. I can't underscore this enough. The American Bar Association, which of course all hold bar cards, British Accreditation Regency, they work for Rothschild. They are as evil can get because they've written the policies of what you're hearing about right now under the auspices of helping us with victories in court. There is no justice. It's illegitimate. It's a corrupt court system. And justice is just us. That's what justice is. And it's important to note that here's what the American Bar says, that they're recognizing that good governance and the rule of law are essential to achieving sustainable development. Do you know how dangerous this is? Can you even fathom how dangerous this is? So Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars is a document I refer to all the time. And if you haven't read it, I would really highly recommend you download it and take a look at it. But I like this saying because it says a silent weapons system operates upon data obtained from a docile public by legal but not always lawful force. When the government is able to collect tax, seize private property without justification, it is an indication that the public is ripe for surrender and is consenting to enslavement and legal encroachment. War is therefore the balancing system by killing the true creditors, all of us, the public, which the elites have taught to exchange true value for inflated currency, falling back on whatever is left of the resources of nature and the regeneration of those resources. They are taking away all of our resources, every single one. For those of you that haven't had a chance to look at this document on stopthecrime.net, it's been there for a number of years. A whistleblower gave this to us. And you can download the entire document. In fact, I think I even have it here. It is the planned chemical sedation of the population through radio wave frequencies for mass mind control. We're already exhibiting mass mind control. I don't know how many of you have heard my talk over the years about the NASA PowerPoint, the Future Strategic Issues, Future Warfare circa 2025. I threw this in at the last minute because I wasn't certain how many of you were aware of this, but you need to be, because this is not a 2025 future. This is right now. It's about bots, Borgs, and it's about eliminating humans. Participants, all the military, all branches of the military, all branches, Department of Defense in Australia, and more. It's a profound technological disruption that we face, and we are in a multi-layered warfare of mass global disruption right now. That they tell us, and we know this, that changes are occurring in scales of months instead of decades. We know that. Humans, they tell us, have taken over and vastly shortened evolution of the planet. And global warming and pollution and deforestation, it's all our fault. The heavy metals that are killing the trees, that's our fault. And global warming, huge public works, gorgeous dam. I want you to bookmark this in your mind right now, dams, because we're going to get into that. They're redirecting evolution, which is obvious. Did we sign up for this? No. I want you to notice the technological ages of humankind. They talk about the year 2020, big question mark, biological and nanotechnology, and then on into virtual technology, robotization of agriculture, of everything, us. Everything will be telecommuting. We'll be isolated behind a computer, ordering, studying, medical, commerce, politics, socialization. We're being isolated for mass mind control. Quantum computing, initially available, they said, in 5 years. Well, this report came out just 2 months before 9/11. It was delivered by the chief NASA scientist, Dennis Bushnell, 2 months before our 9/11. They talked about wearable implants, which we know about, the augmentation, the sensory augmentation, the health monitoring, and the brain stimulation. Most of us know about all of that now. AI and beyond, and computing, human brain characteristics and capabilities, machine capabilities. And by 2030, PC has the collective computing power of a town full of human minds, hive mind. Serious global issues, they tell us, is energy, water, food, land, population growth. They're killing us. There's no population growth. And pollution. They're killing the planet. Our seas are dying because of oceanification. They tell us they're going to use salt water, to irrigate the deserts. So then the demise of the U.S. and the underclass is underway now. That's what you see in California, that's what you see all over the United States, and that's what you see right now here in the UK and everywhere else. Stabilization of world population, the equalization of the haves and have-nots, altered political military outlooks worldwide. It's going to change everything, and you're going to see more. So major law enforcement issues are privacy, internet, biocrime, protection of human electronic implants, protection of CONUS, that's the Continental United States, beyond terrorism, societal disaffection, upheaval, caused by rapid technological changes, road, air rage, psychosomatic illnesses, and withdrawal. Then we have the microdust weaponry. For those of you that want to see what that looks like under your skin, come see me. I'll show you. But it's micro-sized mechanical dust, which is distributed as an aerosol and inhaled into the lungs. And the dust mechanically bores into your lung tissue and executes various pathological missions. It's legal. It's a new form of weaponry. In and near theater ports, airfields possibly unusable. We're going to talk more about that. Bookmark that in your mind. Beam weapons, increasingly prevalent. They say here, heating, high power requirements, surface effects, brain interactions, low frequency modulation, effects of low power microwaves. And this is in a U.S. Army Walter Reed document that I have here that you're going to see in a minute. We don't need scientists conveying the detriments of frequencies in wireless. The military is using it as a weapon. We don't need any more documents. Gross alteration of brain function, and it kills us. They tell us right here. This is just even a simple PowerPoint. But what's fingerprintless? Biological assaults upon us, the use of viruses, weaponization of prions, parasites, fungi, carcinogens, toxins, hormonal regulators, and more. Airborne varieties of Ebola and Lassa. Binary agents distributed via imported products, vitamins, clothing, and food. Individual, societal targeted pathogens. Long-term fingerprintless campaign as opposed to shock and awe. This is a silent weapons system that has been deployed on a massively dumbed-down, distracted, mind-controlled society. What's apparently legal? Well, microwave radiation frequencies are legal, chemical weaponry is legal, chemical pathological effects via sensory organs and weapons, all legal, chemical, personnel, incapacitation weaponry, hostage terrorism, psy-war, acoustic weaponry, and mechanical microdust, and so much more. Robots in the large. They prefer robots because they save lives, they enhance affordability, and they redefine the risk and threat to the environment. They talk about 80% of the continental United States population infrastructure within 50 miles of the coastline is going to be decimated. I don't know how many of you have heard the YouTube that we did called Coastlines Under Attack. Well, your coastlines right here are completely under attack. And I've got the documents. I'm going to show you. Blast wave accelerators. That was invented during World War II by the United States in Auckland, had either one of the two bombs not detonated on Japan. They were going to create a tsunami bomb and wipe out Japan's low-lying coastal regions. That's what's happening now. That's called shore erosion and sea level rise. It's technology. It's technology. So they tell us along the coastlines they're going to mine torpedoes. It's inexpensive. Binary biologicals into our food supply. Inexpensive semi-submerged missiles along the coast. Inexpensive Trojan horse, all civilian systems. All freight cars networked everywhere, just one at a time. No reserves, no stockpiles. Take down the auto industry. The auto industry is being taken down right now through UN Agenda 21, and the false illusion that we're running out of fossil fuel when our petroleum never came from fossil fuels. They're moving us into electric vehicles. Why? Because they're trapping us and confining us, and you're going to hear more. I'm going to hurry through this right now because many of you know the nanotagging, the detonation of offshore seabed methane, deposits to produce high tide and waves against low-lying regions. Trojan horse viruses, etc., massive chaos and psychological warfare. Unmanned vehicles, micromissiles, repositioned and submerged missiles. Ports and airfields in the continental United States will be unusable. They're moving us onto trains and they're telling all of us it will be unusable. Miniaturize everything. Operate out of cities, smart cities. Think of smart cities. Degrade the U.S. info dominance. Exploit the CNN syndrome. This is all to do with media exploitation and what we're hearing all the time in the news. Capture and torture Americans in living color on prime time. We're seeing tortured societies all over the world. Look what they've done to Syria just in the last couple of days. And they've shown us how their own military bombed their hospitals. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Serious psychological warfare, collateral damage and exploitation, affordability, warfare on the cheap, survivability, can see everything. They have Landsat satellites, sensors all over the streets, on every street corner. Anything that they can see, they can kill, and they will. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all of this, but I think you're getting the gist. That warfare will become increasingly robotic. The survivability and affordability of deep water subs, blast wave accelerators, again, bookmark that. We're going to be moving along here. Machines are as creative and smart as humans. Robots will become the norm. Cheap, micro to nano, everything, sensors, munitions, weapons, swarms, and hordes. So how has all this happened? What happened? Why have your local, presumably elected officials that aren't elected and have no jurisdiction, but how have we all been so fooled? It was a very stealth mind game through Tavistock and the Rand Corporation and the World Bank. And they've implemented consensus planning on all of us, which is forming a predetermined plan, making it sound like we're invited to community conversations when the policy's already been planned and determined. It's called the Delphi technique. I'm hoping that many of you have heard of that, but it is how they have created this monster with our belief that we've had public participation. They hire in advisory groups. They're just literally hitman teams from all over the world to lead your cities into climate action plans and into agreements and further debt through grants. All of your city assets are collateralized against these increased grants. This is all pre-planned, predetermined, and it is implemented now. It's on steroids. Predetermined policies, deceiving all of us. So what's another aspect of our global governance? And I think all of you need to know about this one. We're under an anticipatory governance now. Uncertainty is the scheme to promote climate change. And why do I say that? Because climate change, of course, is a cover-up technology used for climate control, aka weather weapons. That's climate change. We all know that. But what's most important for all of us to know is the precautionary principle. And this is why our efforts are defeated, not only with the Delphi consensus and advisory groups, but the precautionary principle. Lack of full scientific certainty shall not be used as a reason for postponing cost-effective measures. That's applied to water. That's applied to electromagnetic frequency and more. This is another insert from my Rothschild Pacific Gas and Electric bill. And it says the results of many research studies have been evaluated by international, national, and California EMF research programs to determine whether EMF poses any health risk. They're telling us, given the uncertainty of the issue, this is the precautionary, the medical and scientific communities have been unable to conclude that usual residential exposure to electromagnetic frequencies cause health effects, or to establish any standard or level of residential exposure that is known to be either safe or harmful. These conclusions remain unchanged by recent studies. Again, look in your bills. This came in our bill, and it says at the top, understanding electromagnetic fields. So now that you all understand, we're getting climate messaging. I brought some newspapers from the United States to show you how every single day on every single page they're talking about climate change. I picked up papers out of Ireland and out of England as well. They tell you about climate change to pre-program you into what is continuing to escalate: war, weather, warfare. And they're adding visualizations to their communication of climate change, which is why you're seeing fires and you're watching them for days, and why you're seeing these innocents gunned down in Syria. Uncertainty is the only certainty here. One world government, again, in WO, it's not new, it's Earth Inc. It's climate change versus climate control. This is just an example of Earth Inc. and the corporate structure. It's hard to read all of those, but we are taken over by corporations, every single one of our perceived countries. Climate change increase weather weapon attacks to drive climate change investments. They're investing on the consequences of our loss and our despair. They're making money. Here's what Secretary of Defense William S. Cohen said back in April 28th of 1997. Others are engaging even in an eco-type of terrorism whereby they can alter the climate, set off earthquakes, volcanoes, remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves, and they're doing it. They're doing it. I would urge every single one of you, if you have not seen this CIA 1960 Memorandum for Climate Control, that you look this up. It also talks about neuro-linguistic programming and the extent of the deception. What we're seeing now is the strangulation of Earth because of the reduction of CO2 and oxygen. We see the increased sunlight deprivation. All of our farms are deprived. Our plants are growing more slowly. Vitamin D deficiency. Regime changes. Look what's happening in Venezuela right now. We recently traveled to Cuba. And when I went back into the Cuban embassy website to look up some of the assaults that were in the Cuban embassy while we were in the vicinity of the acoustic weapons, I fell into an unusual blog that I don't think I was intended to fall into. And it was about how the Trump administration is going to take over Cuba. Again, the CIA document for climate control, air pollution, global suffocation. This is global. Mass extinction of species, we hear that all the time. We're hearing about planting trees while they're killing them. We're being told plant trees. Extreme weather events increasing. I like this one because certainly the eyes are useless when the mind is when the mind is blind. Chemtrailing is first day of kindergarten, 101. We've got to step far and fast away from that because we're far and fast away from that. Let me tell you what the word resilience means. You may be hearing that in all of your media about climate change. Resilience, resilience, resilience. Well, what does it mean? The ability to recover from repetitive loss of life, redistribution of land, forced migration, planned retreats, which we're going to talk about, evacuations, lower standards of living, and we're to adjust to shocks and stresses. They even go on to include that we have to adjust to the shocks and stresses of aging infrastructure. Now I'm going to add something because it's going to come up in a while, but the infrastructure worldwide, we're talking dams, reservoirs, levees, bridges, and more, now must be rebuilt because we're told they were constructed at a time before climate change. They cannot withstand the increased weaponized weather events. And they're using those actually as booby traps. So all due to the new normal of climate change, weather weapons. So here's what the climate action plans discuss. Here is Beyond Copenhagen. This was adopted here for you, for the world, in my town too. Type in your town, the name of your town, followed by climate action plans or energy action plans. Read your plan. I'm going to go through a few of those. But it's important to understand that the climate action plans are templates worldwide, with the technology mandating limited use of energy to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, or crank the temperature up to 2.0 degrees Celsius or more if a nation or state or region is not politically obedient. Weather weapons is being used against people that are not following the prescribed policies. Mandating reduced energy. This is very important to understand. People keep hearing about zero waste, zero energy, reducing the temperatures, but you have to understand the plan. Here's what the plan means. The climate action plans that everyone is supposed to reduce energy consumption dating back to levels of pre-industrial age, back to 1750, when we did not use machinery or equipment to reduce goods. This is where we're to go to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Aiming for zero. Got this off of the U.S. Department of Energy website. The real use and goal of energy use is zero. It says this is the ultimate goal. It's not to use energy. The most efficient energy is energy we do not generate. This is not a technology. It is a behavioral modification, or learning to live in a new reality without. The climate action plans, bar none, worldwide, talk about blackouts and power outages. Can you imagine the millions of people that are going to die? Read the book 1 second after. Again, the precautionary principle, I found this off of the World Bank website, where there are threats of serious or irreversible damage. Lack of full scientific certainty shall not be used as a reason for postponing cost-effective measures to prevent environmental degradation. That's what's happening. That's what's rolling through. Groundwater recharges. We're going to talk more about groundwater in a little bit here, but the water quality worldwide is being contaminated, not just only from fracking, but also from the atmospheric water. We've been misinformed where our water comes from. But Earth Inc., okay, what do we have? We have what they call, and you can look this up, we're in a circular economy. It's a whole life plan. It's a whole life plan. It's a plan to inventory and control all natural resources, the weather, all petroleum, all land, all water, all oceans, the sky, space, all food, means of all production, transportation, transit, and more. Again, it's a whole life plan. And the European Commission adopted an action plan in 2015 to help accelerate Europe's transition towards a circular economy. Did you know that? Did you know you're in a circular economy? So if you make it through all of this, you get into genocide. So increasingly critical, again, are human limitations and downsides. Humans are too large, too heavy, too tender. We're too slow physically and mentally. We require huge costs, and we have rapidly decreasing to negative value added. We're being outsourced. We're being replaced. Robots in the large, again, they save lives. The Georgia Guidestones, many of you have seen that, to maintain humanity under 500 million. Here's another plan. It's the United Nations Rio Sustainable Development Principles, that humans are polluting and damaging the earth. Humans must pay reparations for Earth's restoration. Humans are unsustainable, and we have to pay. So what are they telling us? That all life, human and non-human, have equal value. Human population must be reduced. Resource consumption above what is needed to supply vital human needs is immoral. Civilization must radically change present economic, technological, and ideological structures, and reparations, monetary expense, laws, rules, regulations, population reduction are required for the damage that we've all caused. This is the report from Iron Mountain. If you've not had an opportunity to read it, I would recommend that you do. You can watch it on YouTube also. It's a slightly different play out of the report. This is essential. This report was started under John F. Kennedy's administration, where 15 experts were hired. And over the process of a number of years, this report was completed, and it was released to Johnson after Kennedy was murdered. But the plan from Iron Mountain was to determine the minimal and optimum levels of destruction of life, of property, and natural resources. The deliberate intensification of air and water pollution. So what else was the report from Iron Mountain about? It was telling all of us that they were going to create global warming and poison the earth as a replacement for war. In order to replace battlefield war engagement, they needed a global threat that would be so great that people would succumb to such fear over the environment. This report tells you what happened. So if you have naysayers, or if you haven't seen this for yourselves, watch the YouTube. Population engineering, the fight against climate change. They talk about the threat posed by climate change justifies population engineering. That's killing off people. Relocating climate refugees. Geoengineering weather weapons, along with reducing consumption-related waste, renewable energy, reducing human fertility rates, is morally justifiable. Earth cannot sustain larger populations of wealthier individuals. Are you feeling wealthy? Because you all are. Are you living right now in a 1750 environment? You're not. Then there's the Genocide Treaty. The Genocide Treaty said that one's own nation could not kill its own people. They've actually breached that one, haven't they? But it also talks about the killing off of Christians. And for those of you that don't know about the no-hide laws, you need to know about the no-hide laws. Then we've got executive orders in our country, in the United States, where they talk about they'll take over control of all transportation, highways, seaports, communication, media, petroleum, gas, fuels, minerals. Control of all highways and seaports, all resources, food resources and farms. Work brigades will be under government supervision. They'll take over all health, education, welfare functions. National registration of all persons will be required. I look at this as a checklist. Done, done, done. And then airports and aircraft, including commercial aircraft, will be taken over, and we're being told right now that we've got to cut air travel. So I feel pretty lucky that I made it here. I had to fly. But even boating is not sustainable. So travel while you can. Build new housing. They say they're going to relocate communities, and they're doing that. They're going to build new housing with public funds. We're going to pay for this new housing. allows for the strategic relocation of industries, services, government, and other essential economic activities. So here's a presidential executive order dated January 8th of 2018. Small excerpt is about the authority of President Trump to expedite the rollout of broadband across rural America, every farmhouse, everywhere, rapidly, eliminating the FCC and the FAA jurisdictions and any roadblocks that the FCC and the FAA could have put forth are eliminated. The FCC is not controlled by who we see. It's not. It's controlled by Google and Crown Castle out of England. That's the FAA. Trump also signed an executive order to boost AI technology. Did you know that? February 11th of 2019. So we're in a web of slavery in the smart grid and the United Nations Agenda 21. It's all based on lies, global warming. And we're being electrocuted by frequencies of death in our environment. All of us are getting sick. Another excerpt out of Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars is this: until such energy dominance is absolutely established, the consent of all of us to labor and let others handle our affairs must be taken into consideration, since failure to do so could cause the people to interfere with the transfer of energy sources to the control of the elite. So David Dees did that for us early on, and this is what we see all over the world. Military weapons deployed, disguised as civilian communication networks. This is a silent weapons system for a quiet war. Read that document. This is that Fort Meade military document that I mentioned about that was in the NASA War Plan. I call it the NASA War Plan. So when you go to stopthecrime.net, you can just type in the search bar the NASA War Plan. It is a PowerPoint. I went over some of that with you, not all of it. Much more of it is far more involved. But this is a document dated 1998. And I've just highlighted a little bit of it, but it says electromagnetic fields influence biological systems, cause adverse effects on human health, cancer, reproduction, etc. Increases brain temperature and causes disruption of working memory, resulting in disorientation. Every human is subject to effects of microwave heating, and the predictability is 100%. Slow onset of such frequency heating can be unrecognized by the person being irradiated. How are all of you feeling right now? You're all being irradiated. How many of you have cell phones on you right now? It's a choice. Pulsed electric fields affect heart beating and breathing. Electromagnetic pulses can be used for targeting groups and individuals. We have millions of people worldwide called targeted individuals. They're tortured. They're gang stomped. They're harassed. They're jobless. They end up 5150'd in psych wards. This I found interesting. This was a radio waves ideal for remote human cell manipulation. This is in New York Rockefeller's University, where they said this is breakthrough work. And they tell us that we're talking about the ability to modify the behavior of genes without ever going inside a patient's body. That's potentially a colossal advance. We're here. They're doing it. This is domestic and international terrorism, the targeting of individuals. Many of you may know some. Many of you may have been targeted. I can talk to you about that more too. This is a targeted individual story. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to tell you one thing that all the targets tell me. Because I asked them, because I interview many of them on my radio shows, and I said, what can we do to help you? And they said, believe us. Just simply believe us. So believe them. Look up targeted individuals. I thought this was interesting. This is an electro gun that kills termites in your homes. It works in high voltage, and it zaps the termites. Think of yourselves as termites. They say that it shoots out 90,000 volts of high-frequency electricity into the wood. It could fry your electronics, so you have to pull those out. The EPA said a little bit of radiation damage is actually good for you. The EPA said this. It's good for us because it kicks in our immune systems. Well, what if you don't have a good immune system, like most of us? I mean, you don't. Dirty electricity, again, Sam Milham talked about that back in the early days of the deployment of the smart meters, how electricity does not need a direct wire connection. It connects through the air, traveling into our bodies from the wiring that carries the power. So if you are sleeping on iron bed frames, if women have underwire bras, if you have metal belts, if you have change in your pocket, the electricity is going into you. If you have wire glasses, think about that. The tracking, monitoring, it's real, it's increasing. Cameras, ID, everywhere. The FCC chairman, again, does not run the FCC. They make it appear that way so we can put our anger towards Tom Wheeler, who said we don't need to study the frequencies, we don't need to regulate it, we have standards for it, and ignored all the questions of all the meetings that he attended. Delphi technique. When you go to meetings, you might find that you're invited to fill out a card and give it to the speaker, and they may never get to your card. That's how they control all the meetings. A small list of what happens with 5G deployment. But this is a list off of stopthecrime.net. I would advise all of you to download this, keep this with you, understand how you are feeling and how you are going to continue to feel. Understand the types of symptoms that you will have. It's most important. Just type in Stop the Crime on stopthecrime.net under the search bar symptoms list, and you can download this. Smart cities. Let's talk about smart cities. I have a YouTube up called Kill Cities by Rothschild and Rockefeller, and YouTube took it down. They didn't like me accusing Rockefeller and Rothschild of doing all these dirty deeds, but we argued against that because we had documentation. Everything we document. They can't take down what we can document, and they haven't. They've left stopthecrime.net alone because it's fully documented. So the technologies that are redefining all of our cities through the United Nations are 5G. It's the foundational technology for dense wireless networks that all other tech is built up on. Now we're talking the Internet of Things, we're talking satellite weapons systems, we're talking all levels of warfare. We're also talking about the global mass mind hiving through the RFID chips that we will all soon face. Then the smart cities are built upon computer vision, CV, video as a sensor, the eyes of the city. Mixed reality, augmented reality and plain old reality mixed together to bring digital overlays so that we can psychologically exist in this hell that's being created. Autonomous vehicles. No one talks about the frequencies of autonomous vehicles. They have LiDAR on them. The LiDAR shoots out a 360 circumference and sees everything around it. They're driverless. There won't be people in them, really. Artificial intelligence is the AI. It's the brains of all our future cities. We're going to get into the RFID chips and how this is coming soon in the New World Order and the secret features behind this and how 5G plays into the hive mining and the global chipping of all of us. Because right now people are doing it. They think it's trendy, it's cool. They don't need to carry cards. They just have a chip. They can unlock their doors. They have smart apartments. Have you heard about the smart apartments? You don't need a key. You can remotely control anything in your apartment, all wireless, trendy, convenient. The employers employ employees. Soon that will all be required. But they use electromagnetic fields, and the RFID chip implant is injected under the skin, and it will be necessary to survive in this new future that's being created. You won't be able to buy or sell unless you have this chip. Your bank accounts are on this chip. All your vital data, your wallet. In the New World Order, there will be a one world virtual currency. And your personal identification will be on this chip, your driver's license, your education, the property you own, etc. Unlock all the doors. Has all your hospital and doctor information, GPS location. They'll know where you are every time, 24/7, 365. And they'll know all of your activities. They'll be able to monitor and influence your health status and your moods. We're talking about frequencies that are going to control how you think, how you feel, and how quickly you die. These frequencies can make you blind. They can prevent you from hearing. But then they can also be used to see the environment around you and record everything you see and everything you hear. Manipulate your memories, create false memories, create pain in selected body parts. That's what they do right now to all the targeted individuals. Pain, selected body parts. They'll know if you're hungry or thirsty, if you have to go to the bathroom, how you're feeling, the decisions you're making. They'll make you suffer. That's what they tell us. And they'll kill us. And the best part is people will love it. People will love it. And it will change everything forever. So then there's this document, the Electromagnetic Defense Task Force. Talks about 5G is necessary for all military aspects, that 5G is the foundation for military networks going forward. And it talks about nuclear power resilience. We've got Diablo nuclear power plant just south of San Francisco. And I've got a YouTube up on that. I'd recommend that all of you listen to that. Blackouts going to cause widespread failures, will cause civil unrest within hours. That's all a plan. And so again, 5G is boundary crossing. We know that. They anticipate huge profits. By 2035, they're expected to enable 12.3 trillion on the global economic output for 5G. And again, they've reduced the FCC and FAA impediments for a rapid rollout and deployment of key enabling technologies in the United States while incentivizing domestic manufacturing to help underpin. This is a critical YouTube I did a few years ago. I'm showing this to you right now because our water resources are under mass attack. If you don't have water accessibility on your land, your health department's going to relocate you. This is the process of forced and planned relocation, because it won't be safe for you to live on a property without water. It will be unhealthy. So I really recommend you listen to this, Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power, because I have documents that came and found out of the EU and out of Israel. This was a number of years ago I did this. The World Bank, the Action Plan for Water Regulation. Management regulate water resources. Governments must regulate water use, flow, control of all types of water, issue permits or licenses, and they will be required, and permit grants the water right to an individual. So if you don't have a permit, you're not going to be able to access water. Again, this is out of one of the World Bank documents. Again, permits will be required. What is happening right now, and you can see groundwater extraction and usage needs will have to become more strict and rigid. Right now in Northern California, just a few weeks ago, they have voted to create a tax that will be on our property tax bill. It's actually a fee for water extraction when we use our wells to extract water. And they've made some general assessments of well usage based on a few people that happily agreed to the wireless water meters, which are being deployed globally right now too. So you add in all of the other frequencies that are being deployed with the wireless water meters, the electric grid, the AV, the automated vehicles. And as a result of the fires, they're telling us they're going to mount LiDAR on the hillsides. They've already done this in San Diego. They're going to do this in Sonoma County. They've already done this in Tahoe. Many of you know where Lake Tahoe is. Another executive order regarding the ocean. Don't have time to go over all of this, but they tell us that water will be the limiting factor for building and supplying housing. Do we not have a growing, horrific homeless population? Aren't we promised that they're going to build affordable housing? No, not because of water restrictions, because they're telling us we're running out. Well, we're not. This is probably the best part of this talk right now. The best part. We have primary water. We've been taught, we've been mind-controlled into believing that water comes from rain and snowmelt. Actually, rain and snowmelt is the evaporation of primary water. It's a renewable. It's made continuously down below the mantle of the earth. It comes up through cracks. It shoots up out of geysers. Where do you think that water comes from at the top of the hills or mountains in Hawaii, where it just continuously flows down, cascades down the top of the mountains that aren't in valleys, and it doesn't snow. And there's a beautiful pond down below. When you drink primary water, you have a higher IQ. So you got to get to primary water. This is an excellent video that I made with a primary water expert that has drilled for primary water wells all over the world. And I recommend that you watch this. We explain this chart. It's called Primary Water Explained. This is horrific, and many of you may know this. It's closer into your neck of the woods than mine. But when certainly I found out that Muammar Gaddafi had constructed the largest irrigation system in the world, tapping into the primary water cycle, that supplied 6.5 million cubic meters of fresh water per day to various cities in Libya, enabling the country to grow fruits, vegetables, grains, otherwise impossible to cultivate in the desert. The project cost $25 billion US and was completed without financial support from any major countries or loans from the IMF. That was his mistake. He didn't take the money from the global controllers. And so in 2011, this incredible achievement was destroyed by NATO, the United States, with depleted uranium nuclear bombs, cutting off the water supply for over 6 million people and sending Libya into a crisis. Cape Town, you've heard about zero-day water. This is psychological conditioning of running out of water. I'm on a radio show from a friend of mine out of Ireland, and they said, well, Deborah, did you hear Dublin's running out of water in 70 days? So I'm on air and I type it in. There it is. They were saying that Dublin was running out of water. They're not running out of water. Right now they're talking about the crippling effects of water shortages in Venezuela. Venezuela is being taken down right now. And they talk about the global water woes, Australia's looming water crisis. You can see the signs they're putting up all around. We busted this. Mountain House in California, just a little bit out of San Francisco. It was a property that was purchased by Rothschild, and it was set up as an Agenda 21 city to literally be the Universal Studios back lot for exhibiting running out of water. They said they were going to run out of water. Well, I called down there and I talked to a couple of real estate firms, and I said, so how are you going to sell houses down there when you run out of water? And they said, what? Run out of water? I said, well, it's all over the papers, all over the United States. You're running out of water in days. They hadn't heard about that. Severe water shortages could plunge England into the jaws of death. 25 years. This is off of the U.S. Department of Interior website. This was May of 2003. It shows areas where existing supplies of water in California are going to be massively reduced and be met with conflict. Well, I looked up and found out that met with conflict meant that we were going to pull out our guns and not let them take our water. That's what that meant. Then I found this recently. The map of the United States on the left shows what the United States water supplies will look like without climate change. And the one on the right shows what climate change is going to look like for water effects in the United States. And that's what they're doing, the one on the right. So look at the states that are going to be decimated. Future building industry, limits of growth. Talked about that, the most critical topic of water. About water, the time critical growth is being limited. So now we're zero waste, so we're going to be drinking toilet to tap. Why do you think that they're building wastewater treatment plants and recycling our drinking water and going to serve it up to all of you in the municipal water supplies? And it's very important to understand on stopthecrime.net, Lou and I went on a tour of, and we call it the sewer poop tour. You might want to watch it. It will save you the stench and the few hours that we went through. And it's a laugh because our guide said if he fell into one of the sewer pits, he'd probably die because it's so toxic. Well, again, waters are renewable. We're not running out. So go to primarywater.org. Tell everybody you know that has land and can drill wells, they've got to get to primary water. Another problem with the wastewater treatment plants is because of all of the nuclear waste, the radiation from Fukushima, and the convenient releases from our nuclear plants, which they release radiation periodically for us, destroys a lot of the organisms that eat the bad bacteria in the fecal matter in the sewer water treatment plants. They're destroyed by radiation, which in turn means that the bad bacteria survives and mutates into a more dangerous form. The New Green Deal. Let's talk about the New Green Deal. It's not new, it's not green, and it's not a deal. When you hear the word green on anything, I want you to think of death. Brown, dead, dying. That's linguistic programming. Green. It is not about green. They're killing our forest. We have to replace grass with plastic grass. We have to reduce the landscaping around our homes. California next year is going to be reduced to 55 gallons of water usage per day per person. Interior use only. No plants, no oxygen, earth suffocation, all intentional. Every building worldwide is going to have to be rebuilt and or retrofitted. This is building a new economy on destruction and false science. This is the economy of the future. Reducing air travel, reducing use of all energy. And they talk about how the Federal Reserve can extend credit to power these projects and investments, and new public banks can be created to extend credit. So I talk about the climate action plans. Again, I would recommend that all of you take a look at yours. This is the IPCC, United Nations Environment Program Plan. I'm moving forward because I want to Don't want to miss the best. This is beyond Copenhagen. This is your plan. Print off this plan. Take a look. I have to move right along because they say this, and I don't want to miss this. There is no escaping the fact that developed countries must take the lead in reducing emissions. Back to 1750. No machinery, no equipment. Understand what they're telling you. Because I didn't understand. People were telling me, well, they're taking us back to pre-Columbian times. Well, I didn't know what they meant because Columbus didn't discover America. So I didn't understand what they meant. So they're phasing out inefficient fossil fuels. Here's a climate action plan out of the town of Bedford in Indiana. And they're targeting all transportation, residential, commercial, and all waste. And they're saying that they're reducing waste by encouraging less consumption. That's less usage across the board. And they say that the changing climate means an increase in severity and frequency of storms, including rainfall events, hurricanes, tropical storms, northeasterns, tornadoes, and other high wind events. This is what's going to happen in Bedford, Indiana, because of climate change. They list it out. They talk about the pollutants, the viruses. They say that there will be decreasing air quality. There will be increased prevalence of diseases, severe and longer heat waves that can threaten the health of the most vulnerable, power outages due to heat waves resulting in heat and stroke and stress and more pollen, more molds. Again, this is a typical pie chart showing the types of attacks on transportation. They're eliminating our ability to travel. They're incarcerating us. Complete implementation of this plan will allow the city to achieve the adopted target of reducing greenhouse gas emissions 25% below 1990 levels by 2020. That's just a plucked from air figure. They have no idea what they're talking about. It just sounds good and people don't understand it. So all new construction is now to be built zero net energy, only electrical, no gas. They talk about the negative impacts of wildfires, implementation policies, more climate action plans. Kiss your gas goodbye. Nationwide climate action plans, you're not allowed to use gas anymore. That's why they're transitioning all of us into electric vehicles. Not only gas in your homes, but gas for your cars too. Resilience, again, I talked about that definition. Critical to understand what they expect of you, of us, of all of us. Okay, so it's a global intention to retrofit all existing buildings, all existing homes. Retrofit. If you don't retrofit, you're going to be fined and penalized and likely not able to occupy your property. This is creating a new business that never existed before. You'll have to have permits in order to continue to live in your home, and but don't be tricked. I'm showing a forecast here. Rockefeller and Rothschild's green energy loans, green, dead, death, brown, okay? Let me just tell you that you have these loans available to you here in England as well. You can type it in, green energy loans or PACE. They're all backed by Rockefeller and Rothschild. All cities, all states, all nations worldwide, in order to finance your forced retrofitting. But they say that the potential PACE loan crisis in America that America is facing is one that can no longer be ignored. PACE loans lack customer protections and have few checks to ensure that energy savings are real and cost-effective and are inappropriate for homeowners who may be eligible for free or lower-cost programs. They're talking about a predatory lending system of which the United States Department of Energy is supporting. It's a corporate agency. It's a corporate agency. Again, predatory lending. Google is helping out and fight for climate change. They're launching satellites. They're going to watch, if your backyard is green, they're going to know that you are violating your usage of water. They're helping out. Well, I'll just say that Brazil has a satellite monitoring system. It says the space technology programs to monitor Brazil's natural resources. They're monitoring all natural resources worldwide. Black start, power outages everywhere. Climate change will cause power outages due to heat events. Be ready. Have your flashlights ready. Have whatever you need. Practice a weekend with your power turned off. Just see what that feels like, because they're planning it. Why all these deadlines, 2020, 2030? Because they're in a hurry. Horizon 2020, that's an EU research and innovative program, all part of the same takedown. And then if you haven't seen this movie on Netflix, I would recommend it. It's called City 40, City 40. It's an invisible city. It shows how people have been programmed, and people outside of Russia lived in this city from birth to death. They couldn't leave, and there was barbed wire around it, but they made it beautiful and tolerable, and they lived there. Then there's the City 40 cities that is in play worldwide to create cities worldwide for us to be mandatory evacuated into. Who's behind some of this stuff? Well, it's funded by the UK government, okay? The world's leading platform for global food transformation is EAT. Did you know that? They're behind forced relocation. ICLEI. We know about ICLEI. Many of you have heard about that. International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, all UN Agenda 21. The Clinton Foundation, I just pulled a few, Johnson & Johnson, the World Bank always shows up, MasterCard. In fact, the Rockefeller is now working with MasterCard for big data, Ford Foundation, and more. But they have plans because they're going to move you out to sea in these futuristic pods, and you're going to float. And they're going to be fully self-contained. You can take a look at this. It's unimaginable. It's Ocean X City, New York's future floating city, because they're moving us off our coast. They're saying that these cities will be fully self-supporting, their own power, own fresh water, heat, etc. Here's another social experiment in Sierra Leone in Africa, building sustainable cities without unsustainable concrete or steel. This kind of reminds me of the little pigs, the houses, blow yourself down, right? We're moving into a shared economy where you own absolutely nothing. We can say goodbye to retail, sole proprietorship, small business owning anything. Airbnb's mission statement. Airbnb's mission is to live in a world where one day you can feel like you're home anywhere and not in a home, because you won't have a home. This is the Wildlands Project map, funded by the Turner Foundation. I interviewed Ted Turner some years back. You can check that out on YouTube. Here's the name of it, Ted the Terrible. Massive depopulation. Blast wave accelerator. Global precision strike on the cheap. No barrel. Excellent stealth. No plume. Affordability. Veracity. Being worked on at Aberdeen and NASA. This has been used. This is being used all around our coastlines right now because 70% of the global population lives on the coast. Why? Because we feel better. We get the negative ions. When you live in the area or region of coastal influence, you are less able to be mind controlled. They want you off the coastlines. Again, this is out of the NASA war plan. They talk about blast wave accelerators, how they're going to implement this. Coastlines are under attack all over the world by every form of military. All of our militaries are involved. They're going to be relocating all low-lying military bases. Did you know that? We're going to all have to pay for that because they're playing their coastline war games with new technologies, just like the overhead aerial aerosol spraying. but I'm in a hurry because I don't want to miss the best. This is very important to understand. I'll just explain it quickly. Coastal water aquifers are being overpumped. It's allowing saltwater intrusion. So when you overpump an aquifer that abuts the coastline, the salt water is heavier, so it fills in this chasm of the overpumped aquifer. So they're calling that sea level rise. Okay, take a loose connection. Okay, that's the YouTube that we did, Coastlines Under Attack, and I would recommend all of you listen to that. They're talking about all the airports that'll be underwater. Don't want us traveling in planes anyway. And sea level rise, it's going to rise fast. It will flood hundreds of cities in the near future. Hundreds. So they have planned retreat. Type that in, coastlines and planned retreat. They're going to move you off the coastlines. You're going to have to tear down your home and let it be consumed by the possibility that storm surge could wipe out your property. You won't be compensated for your loss of your home. And I learned about this quite by accident. In Southern California, there's a very rich beach community in the San Diego area. And they're fighting against having planned retreat written into their planning and building codes because it will devalue their property. They won't be able to get financing. They won't be able to get insurance. Bloomberg, this is very important to understand. They have plans with insurance policies. They're going to be redirecting where we can live, whether or not we can get insured. An example, in Northern California, near the town of Paradise that burned down. There's a beautiful city called Nevada City. Watch for it on the news. They're saying it's the next city to burn. It's a gorgeous gold rush community, beautiful old Victorian homes. And right now they're canceling all the homeowners' insurance policies. The people that are able to get insurance policies are paying triple times. Many people can't afford it and they can't sell their property. You can't get financing unless you have an insurance policy. Yeah. It's happening globally. Again, UK sea level rise. I have a document right here about all of that. Your shorelines are under attack. All shorelines are under attack. All shorelines worldwide. It's all in plain sight. Okay, we're being booby-trapped. What is being booby-trapped? Dams and reservoirs. Very important to understand we never had to transport our water, our drinking water, by dams and reservoirs. We have primary water, just like that big California aqueduct. We don't have to transport drinking water. That's atmospheric polluted water. It's poison. It's toxic. It comes out of the sky where they're chemtrailing and killing us, and the radiation in the air. And they're wanting us to drink this atmospheric water because they're telling us that's where our water supply comes from. Well, it doesn't. And dams, think of a dam like a bathtub. It creates impoundment. On the geological structures underneath, it causes shifting. Type in dams and earthquakes. You'll find dams and earthquakes coexist all over the world. They're putting dams everywhere because they know they cause earthquakes. They know it. We're being booby-trapped. We are under attack so many ways. Looming climate disaster with dams. They tell us that California, we need to address questions about our aging water infrastructure that was built for snow instead of rain. We'll see more rain in the future, and our infrastructure is not going to withstand climate change, weather, weapons. Neither will it stand for it. This is Hoover Dam. Built in 1930. There was never an earthquake there before. After Hoover Dam and Lake Mead went in, there are daily earthquakes. Very important to understand, wrap your head around this impoundment, the weight. Unnecessary. They did not have to move water around this planet by dams and reservoirs that they poison, add other toxins to it, and then deliver it to our municipal water supplies, to our homes to drink. Flint, Michigan, lead in the water supply. Natural warfare in the NASA document utilize explosive destructive capacities. Dams. Take out dams. Don't live below a dam. Don't do that. The UK priorities for a green fund. Okay, if your loan request is not green for sustainability, you will not get loans in the future. In fact, lending by the money mongers for anything other than sustainability is going to be illegal. Anything you do that is not driven towards sustainable development is going to be illegal. Green credit, again, this is Ernst & Young. They're out of London. Okay, I got to tell you, I found out about them because they're now working in my town in Sonoma County after the fires. This is important to understand. The new revenue schemes, they're going to put a price on the air. I kid you not. I kid you not. They're pricing nature. We have decimated nature. We've decimated the beach, the coral reefs, the pastures, the grass. We have to pay. So they have new revenue schemes, Ernst & Young, and they're working with Rothschild. Look it up. And the World Bank, putting a price on everything. Natural capital is what it's called. Charging for nature. Pricing and selling nature. That means water, soil, air, plants, animals, minerals, oceans, forests, sand dunes, salt marsh, sediment, all beach systems, agricultural land, and more. I got this off their website. Natural capital, pricing and charging you for the air you breathe. Sustainable finance. United Nations Managed and Forced Retreat. Do you know that they have a division set up to move you off of your homes and off your lands? Forced migration. They have a division set up right now. If you are not sustainable, if you've not retrofitted your home, if you're in a low-lying area, you're going to be moved off. This is a recent fence that was built in Hungary. It's their new border fence. And they have heat sensors, cameras, and border hunters to keep migrants out. The migrants are being forced to relocate because of war, because of climate, and because of the illusion of lack of water. It's forced global retreat. You see the women, you see the children trekking on these dusty trails from other countries, from elsewhere, coming to our towns. We have homeless population in our area, one of the larger homeless populations in the state after the fires. There's no homes. The cost for rental housing is so astronomical that now the city has decided they're going to put severe rent control on all property owners. Again, equalizing the haves and have-nots. Hungary has a climate action plan, and it's important to understand that the plans also require massive reductions of all energy consumption. Every city, every town, every jurisdiction, type it in. They all have climate action plans. So the true purpose of AI, I just want to tell you, it's not what we've been told. Do some deep searches on the triple helix. This is from a whistleblower. Do some research on this. This is a must. Check it out. And see what you can find, because new groups of elite medical societies have been named and formed around the triple helix. But nobody wants to disclose or discuss this publicly, because it is a secret of the elite occult, secret societies that control the secret shadow government. Is my time up? I'm going to go a little longer. I think I still have time. 20 minutes, good, because I've got a lot of stories to tell you. So we have a small satellite revolution, the Black Cube, small satellite launched by hundreds monitoring climate change, tracking weaponized weather warfare, letting them know how successful they have been in demolishing our cities. That's what the new devices are now mounted in the hills that I mentioned earlier, the LiDAR, so that they can look in real time, 24/7, 365. This is like a horrible, deadly video game gone live. And we're all players in this game. So Earth's observation to image every part of the Earth every day. Space weather, our entire economy relies on GPS. CubeSats can be operated by cell phones, swarms of extremely small satellites, restricting global challenges like climate change, disaster management, maritime systems, etc. But what the insiders are claiming is what's not disclosed is that these satellites are hived, and many operate by advanced interdimensional quantum physics. 5G is the master control system that will control our moods, our minds, and more. Hive mind definition is the collective mental activity expressed in the complex coordinated behavior a hive mind or group of mind may refer to shared intelligence. So on stopthecrime.net and on Primary Water, we post YouTubes frequently. I do many radio shows all over the world from documents, from some of the documents that I have here. This is a final report on Project SEAL. Project SEAL talks about the blast wave accelerator that was created to take out the low-lying coastal areas. So if you watch the YouTube Coastlines Under Attack, you'll hear us talk about this. You're now looking at the real document, copy of the real document. And this is a document, again, I'm known for documents. That's why our website hasn't been taken down. This is a document showing the future of sea, current and future impacts of sea level rise in the UK. And there's maps. This is a climate action plan. So I'm going to talk about this, but again, I'm going to ask that all of you, because people call me up, they call in our website, they say, Deborah, where can we move? Where is it safe? And I said, well, where are you thinking that you'd like to relocate? I said, look at the climate action plan in that area and find out what they're going to do to you in that geographical location, because the climate action plans will tell you. Now, a funny thing happened when I searched for this climate action plan. This is the Butte County Climate Action Plan where the town of Paradise was, and I pulled it up during the fires. And I was covering it on radio because it talked about how the town of Paradise would experience wildfires. Well, it was on fire. It was burning. And how it would have water shortages. And it would have severe dust. And on and on. So then I went back to look at this document to download it, and it was gone. And the phone number that I called for the planning department in Butte County put me into a outfit out of Florida for a Caribbean cruise trip. And so I called the city. I knew that they were, under mass attack with directed energy weapons. All our fires have been a result of smart meters, directed energy weapons, as I mentioned, ground-based arsonists, and more. Many people saw lots of flickering lights the nights of the fires that we experienced in the Santa Rosa Sonoma County area. And so I called Butte County. They did put it back up. I could find it. But in here it says, and in many of the plans it says, it doesn't matter how much you reduce your greenhouse gas emissions and your CO2 emissions, because the climate is exacerbated to the point that you can't do anything about it. So why is it they keep telling us that we've got to reduce our CO2 emissions? Because they're putting us back to a 1750 existence. And millions and millions and millions of people will die. That's the plan. It's genocide. That's the plan. So I want to say, going forward, we have to live in right conduct every single day. Love the people you love the most more. Live one day at a time. Admittedly, you may hear me say on air often that I go through truth trauma, and I do. I have a war room that is piled with papers, and it breaks my heart. Breaks my heart what they're doing to all of us. And so it's our job to occupy and stand. This is a battle between good and evil. This is the way I look at it, because I see evil in all of these documents. Every single one is evil. Absolute evil. And I would recommend, again, you read Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Look at the YouTube, the report from Iron Mountain. Here's an example of the NASA war. It's only 100 or so pages long. It's a PowerPoint. I've discussed this again over the years on multiple radio shows. Can all of you hear me okay? I'm hearing a lot of... Okay, so it's been recommended that because we're all targeted for demise, that we don't travel alone much, that we travel with friends. If you can stay in your relationship, stay in your relationship. It's not a time to willingly isolate yourself by being alone. Women that are alone and men that are alone are being targeted. That's where the majority of the targeted individuals is occurring. People being alone. Don't be alone. That's why I'm so glad to be here, because I don't feel alone, because all of you are here. And we have to stick together, and we have to understand what is happening. And people say, well, what's the solution, Deborah? And I tell people, well, the solution is what you see as the problem. And we all look at the problem differently. I've reviewed documents for so many years that the way I look at a problem is different than the way many of you would. But I will tell you, get to water. Those of you that have farms or ranches or can help, a family member that has land that you can drill for water before you're not able to pull permits to drill for water. They've already put well drilling permit moratoriums in Ventura County. That's Central California on the coast. You cannot drill for water. And you can't move around these well rigs silently. They're large, large rigs. So if you can get to water, get to water. If you're in the rural country, there are going to be power outages. Have backup power so that you can access water. We recommend that people get additional water tanks so you can fill them, because when more fires occur in our area, we've had firefighters that fought in the Santa Rosa fires. In fact, Lou and I went to the town of Paradise with 2 retired firefighters that between the 2 of them have 60 years experience. They're actually retired captains. And we were hunting for the evidence that smart meters were involved, and we found it. Lou found a case in a partially burned down school in Paradise, the size of a refrigerator box. No flames had hit the outside of this box. And when we opened up the door, the meter had exploded and melted down the face. Type in smart meters and fires worldwide. Also, for replacements of homes when you're rebuilding, this is essential. This is crazy. It's all crazy. But you're required to have low E energy windows or energy efficient windows of some type. There are a variety of them. Check out the one that you might be installing or your neighbor will be installing when you have to replace your home because of a flood or a fire or a wind condition or whatever kind of condition would necessitate your replacing your windows, like retrofitting, because window replacement is required under retrofitting to reduce your energy costs. And because the low energy windows cause fires. If they're on the south exposure of your house where the sun shines in, these windows are duopane and they have argon gas in the middle, and these windows concave. And it's like a magnifying glass. My brother lost his home in Santa Rosa. They bought a new home, and we had a red flag fire warning one afternoon, and he told his wife, I just got a funny feeling. Just stay at home. Had she not stayed at home, the unoccupied, unsold home right next to their home, the windows caught, the fence on fire on the back, in the back of the house. Had she not been there to run out there with a garden hose to put this fire out, and the neighbors come to help her, their house would have burned down, their new house. They had just moved in. They had lost everything. So low E energy windows, you will not find these warnings on the window factory websites. And in fact, the Department of Energy recommends these windows. I've had people from Montana contact us because they've had some ferocious winds and many homes, their windows were blown out, and the builder installed these low E energy windows. It's a global situation. Many methods of causing pain and suffering are being deployed now on all of us. So as we learn about these things, we post these up on stopthecrime.net, hoping that this information will help you, help your neighbors, help yourself as we go through this petri dish that we're in to create a transformation of what has always been known to be human. So we have to work together as humans, and I just thank you all for being here and listening. So I'm signing off. Thank you so much.
Well, I think that's giving you a little bit to talk about in the bar, right? Outstanding, Deborah. Thank you so much. And thanks to you and Lou for coming over to the UK and sharing that with us.